All right. Welcome, everyone. And thank you guys so much for coming tonight. We are just so happy to have you and for everything you guys are doing bedside. My name is Britt. I'm the community manager here at Trusted. I traveled for 5 years, have been a nurse for 8. I did a myriad of specialties. I will not name them all. But yeah, I will also be kind of helping to answer questions and things like that. But Nikki and Tayler are great at all of this. So I'm super excited for you guys to hear their stories and their information because I know that it'll be a wealth of knowledge for everyone. For those of you all who don't know, Trusted is a travel nurse company that places nurses in all 50 states. But amongst that, we also have a wealth of career resources. So from our blog entries to our CEU tracker, as well as our other resources career building as well on our website. When I email you all the presentation afterwards, I'll also list some blogs. If you guys are all having like similar questions, I'll link in some blogs and some resources for you guys so you don't feel alone. And as I said, even when this presentation ends, do not feel like you can't reach out to us and we won't answer any questions that you still further have after the presentation. So without further ado, we'll get started. I already kind of hipped you guys to all this stuff, so we don't have to go over that. This is just the agenda. We'll talk about insurance, finances, health, transportation, and self. And then, of course, what everyone really loves to have is the Q&A section at the end. So don't feel like we're not going to get those questions answered. All right, so I'll hand it over to our host now.
Hey y'all, I'm literally so excited that everyone's here. My name is Tayler. I am a travel nurse with Trusted, and I'm also a community ambassador for Trusted. I've been a nurse for like 6.5 years in PT Mock, and I've been a traveler now for 4.5 of them. I literally was like, I'll give it a little try and see if I like it. I can do anything for 3 months, and then 4.5 years later, here I am still living on the road. I'm from Tennessee, born and raised. I'm now living in San Francisco, and I kind of keep finding myself taking like local contracts around the Bay for financial reasons. But yeah, and I guess my fun fact is I'm deathly allergic to milk and I've never tasted cheese. So I'm the queen of any ER copay questions and health problems there. Okay. We can go to our first slide. Right.
Yeah. I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second, Tayler. I'm Nikki. I am also a Trusted Health Ambassador, community ambassador. I have been a nurse for 6 years. I worked primarily in CT-SICU for most of those years. And then I've been a traveler for the last 2 years where I've kind of bounced back and forth between CT-SICU and COVID ICU life. So that has been a whirlwind. I am a Philadelphia native, born and raised, college there, went and did my first 5 years of nursing there. And I've only been on the East Coast traveling so far. I will hopefully expand within the next couple months. But I love the East Coast and it's been my home for a long time. So I wanted to stay close to family, which is why I stayed over here for the last couple of years. And then my fun fact is I love to name all of my pets after other animals. So I had a dog that was named Bull. And now I have 2 cats that are both named Sloth and Monkey. And I've already decided that my next dog is going to be named Donkey. So I have just a really fun time with naming pets and confusing them as much as humanly possible. So I'm going to pass it back over to Tayler.
Nikki, this is mine, right? Yeah. Sorry. Okay. So I just want to preface this with Nikki and I are amateur adults, and we're just gonna share like our experiences and what we've learned. If an expert in the field tells you something differently, listen to them by all means. But I think one of the biggest things that you need to take into consideration when traveling is taking the initiative and getting disability insurance on your own, like completely independent of your employment, of your agency, because I think our employment tends to be, I've been loyal to Trusted, but still sometimes I'm off for like months in between. So our employment tends to be so sporadic. I would definitely 10,000% recommend getting disability insurance on your own. Mine's through Aflac. and it's not super expensive. I don't remember how much it is, but I know that they'll pay, like, I'm not an expert in this, but I know that they'll pay a pretty good amount of time. They'll pay your salary if you are injured and can't work, because we don't have the benefit that staff nurses do of, like, if we get hurt in a wreck, skiing, whatever, and you can't work for 6 weeks, like, we really don't have a significant source of PTO. Like, a friend of mine was at a wedding, and she fell and, like, really bad, broke her ankle. She's a traveler, and she was off her feet and unable to work for 8 weeks. So things like that happen. Make sure you have disability insurance. I also have life insurance, even though I'm 28 and don't have kids. It's super worth it. I mean, I think mine's like literally $6 a month. So that takes into consideration any pre-existing health conditions, all that stuff. But I definitely recommend getting that. And a lot of times it's offered as part of the benefits for literally like $3. So I take all insurance I can, especially because I'm a homeowner. So I'll talk on that later. But I don't know what happens when you die and you own a home and where that mortgage goes to. So I figured I'd cover my family in that.
I also want to add, sorry, Taylor, I just wanted to add too that, like, so another good reason to get life insurance that I was talking with my financial advisor about was student loans. So, like, your student loans follow you after you die, and your whoever is your like next of kin is responsible for them. You can't go into bankruptcy for your student loans. So when I was talking to my financial advisor, they had recommended getting life insurance for your student loans, because if you pass away and your parents or whoever your next of kin is, your children, are kind of left responsible for those. So that was a big reason why I wanted to get it personally, even though I don't even own a home or have children. I was like, I'm not going to leave my parents like stranded with all of my student debt. So, which, like, I think we can all relate to that for sure. And then malpractice insurance too, I think, is super beneficial, just because you don't have, like, you have the hospital there to kind of guide you, but as a traveler, like, you don't really have the hospital to have your back the way you do when you're staff. And I think that with documentation and things being so various at different institutions, I think it's always really important to have malpractice to just kind of cover all of your bases. And yes, I see your comment about if you have someone co-sign with you. Yes, if you have someone co-sign with you, your parents, if they are co-signing so you can take out loans, they definitely will have to be responsible for those.
Wow, I did not know that. I've never thought about that. So yeah, if you have student loans, I think it's worth the like $3 a check or something like that. More than worth it. And yeah, I would definitely echo the malpractice insurance. I don't think I have to like dive into how hospitals are when it comes to protecting nurses, but especially travelers, they don't know you. I just think it's best to be protected in every regard. So you can get that. I think it's like $100 a year. I forget the company that does it right now, because I think there's only one, but it's literally $100 a year, which, if you think about how often or how much like malpractice lawsuits are, I think that's more than worth it.
Also offer like other benefits too. Like when I was refinancing my student loans, they were like, "Oh, do you have this malpractice insurance like for nurses? If you do, you can get a lower interest rate." I was like, "Oh, that's wonderful," but I don't have that brand, so sorry.
Yeah. Yes, NSO. Someone just put it in the comment. I knew. Thank you. And it's about $100 a year in NSO. Okay, this is my finances. Like I said, I'm just going to preface it again with, I do not consider myself like a finance or investing expert at all. If someone else tells you something, listen to them. My biggest advice is beware of the gradual creep. I think so many people like let that sneak up on them. Because I really do think the more you make, the more you spend. So just be firm with yourself in setting a budget. How much you want to allocate to savings, each assignment, how much is fund money, that basic adulting structure. I think it's best to set up like automated deposits into your savings or investment accounts, just to, stay structured. I will say I went to a financial advisor, and he makes like 0.2% of any of my income on my investment. And that's besides that. So I never even really see that money anyways. Like I don't pay him. And it ensures that they want your accounts to do well, because if your accounts don't, then they literally don't make anything. And like I said, it's not like I have to like pay him up front. It's just he makes a small percentage of my income on that. So he set me up with a Roth IRA and some like diversified mutual funds that are completely independent of my employment. I knew that, like I said earlier, like my employment is so sporadic and I switch companies. Okay, like I have switched companies in the past and I didn't want it tied to my employment at all. I think if you're a staff nurse, then definitely have it tied because they match, but I don't think most travel agencies match. So I have a Roth that I put in the maximum every year. And then after that, it all goes into my mutual funds. I have it set up on like every 2 weeks, like a certain amount goes in it. And then occasionally I can just log in and add more if I want to. And then don't look at it, don't touch it unless something like actually happens and you really need it. And another thing that I think you should be working on, because I think most people going to travel nursing knowing that they're not going to do this for the rest of their career. So while you're making increased income, I think it's a great time to be making investments that will make you passive income in the long run. I'm trying to retire, be per diem by 40. I don't know about y'all, but I'm not trying to work full time at the bedside. But so I personally dabble-ish in real estate investing. I bought a house. I literally signed my contract to travel nurse on Tuesday, closed my house on Wednesday. So I bought it and I left. And I rent it out while I'm on the road. It gives me a tax benefit. And I have, someone else paying my mortgage. My goal, this assignment is to pay the house off. And then whenever I sell it, then it's, my money's invested in there, or I can keep renting it out and that's just passive income every month. And I'm looking to buy a second investment house because, like I said, passive income's great. I'm not trying to be full time at like 50. Let's see.
I also think too, Tayler, like off of that, it's always good to know, like I remember, and I think because I started maybe traveling a little bit more recently than you did, I remember how stressful it was in the beginning of travel nursing, like finding housing and like doing all that stuff and like the payments that come with that. So I think that trying to have some sort of emergency fund or like bank before you start traveling is not a bad idea. I don't think it's necessary. I know people who've started traveling without having an emergency fund, and then they built up their emergency fund as they were traveling because their income was higher. And I know personally that's something that I've done. Like I have been able to save so much more because I wasn't living like almost paycheck to paycheck with my staff job. And even though I have 2 rents to pay, I'm able to pay both of those rents. And there's ways of kind of working around that. But I think having that kind of idea ahead of time, like what are your finances going to be within this first month or so of you traveling, is a good way to kind of start off your finances and set yourself up for success for sure.
Yeah. I was going to touch on that. I think that's like one of the most important things that gets looked over, especially now it's kind of a different time with all these like crazy crisis contracts. And I understand people just like quitting their job. That's kind of different. But generally speaking, I recommend everyone that's talking about travel nursing, I'm like, don't start until you have a month's expenses, at least a month's expensive, at least a month's worth of expenses, because it doesn't happen super often. But I mean, like, contracts fall through, housing falls through, and when you get housing, I've always had to pay like a security deposit or first month, last month, whatever, even for a short-term rental. And you don't want to be quit your job, drive across the country and not have any money. So I think it's a requirement to have at least a month's expenses. That's just my personal opinion, but I think I'm always extra nervous, Nelly. But yeah, you'll be able to build it up more, but I always have at least a month, I say. And make sure try to foresee any sudden expense that could arise and do your best to prevent that, like car stuff, housing stuff, all that. Health. This is also, I feel like I'm the queen of health problems on the road. I personally think it's one of the easiest things to overlook and just let it slide. And we all know how the importance of primary care and just maintenance, boring stuff, taking care of yourself. So I learned the hard way, like stay on top of scheduling your maintenance appointments that you have, like your annual screening, and like for women, like the gynecologist you go to just once a year, and the boring stuff, and dental cleanings. I'll schedule that like 9 months out. I'm like, like I know I'm going to be in Tennessee these months. I need to do it now. And just have a system, put it in your phone. And I set a reminder for 2 months out, a week out, and the day before, because I made it 9 months ago. Stay on top of those appointments. This is what I struggled with in the beginning, and I learned this the really hard way, is if you know you're going to be traveling, refill as many prescriptions as you can and get the largest amount that you can. Like some meds, I think will let you do 120 days. I do that, and I stay on top of that religiously, because it really, really sucks to be on assignment and not be able to get meds, especially if you're on, like I was on Adderall when I started traveling, which is like a controlled substance. So then a lot of times, like there's weird laws about being able to fill it in another state. So just research everything you can, have all of your meds when you hit the road. Even like I've had a PRN Zofran order that my doctor put in like 3 years ago, and I'm like, I'll just fill it, take it on the road.
Another thing to keep in mind when you're filling prescriptions is your insurance may change. So your hospital insurance may cover certain things that your other insurance may not cover. So like try and fill everything you can while you have what you're paying, because if you, like, for example, some hospitals and employers will cover birth control. And then if I got it through my hospital pharmacy, it was one cost, but if I got it from an outside pharmacy, it was another cost. So like getting all of those things squared away before you go. Also, like if you can get your appointment squared away before you go on your assignment, like before I went on my assignment, I made every single doctor's appointment I could possibly make. Even if I had just seen them like 6 months ago and I wasn't due for like a year, I would still call them and be like, hey, I'm not going to be home for a little while. Can I just get a checkup before I go, and get all that stuff squared away as much as you can?
Yes. I'll agree with that, which I personally like to take like a month or two off between assignments. So depending on how long it is, sometimes you have coverage to cover that time. A lot of times I don't, because I've taken so long off. So when I'm insured, I'll fill every possible medicine I can. I'll go sure, schedule me for the dermatologist while I'm insured, just do it all. Cause it's just so unpredictable. And another thing that I learned is, especially with I see a psychiatrist in Tennessee, and while I was on the road, I was like, oh, great. When COVID happened, I was like, they can just do telehealth. Wrong. I don't know the deets behind this, but I guess for insurance purposes / legal liability, a lot of times if you're physically in another state, the provider cannot do telehealth. So I just think, I wish I'd known that. More people should know that a lot of times if you're physically in another state, which you most likely are, your doctor can't do telehealth. And this one is my travel nurse #1 most important. Once I started traveling, I'm not even going to get into all my dental problems, but I had to have 4 oral surgeries in a year and a half through different providers. And it's a pain in the rear end. I saw an oral surgeon in Phoenix, and then 6 months later, I'm seeing an oral surgeon in DC, and I can't remember what all was done. I can't remember what treatment was done. So every time I have any encounter with a healthcare provider, I'm like, can you please email me, my personal email, a visit summary, any scans they did, any results, and any treatment that they did, so that I have it. And because I think we all know how messy the EMR system is and all that. So keep a record of all of that yourself. I have all my dental CT scans on my phone. You can pull it up, and I just have a note in my phone of literally, this doctor did this, this doctor did this, this doctor did this in the city, because you forget all that crap and you need to know it later. So that's my big thing.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing, because I went to my regular healthcare provider the other day, and I was like, I had this procedure done 2 years ago from another provider. I don't even know. And it's my same like person that I've been going to forever. So I think that for everyone, that is just like such a great tip. And I also think that you don't have to necessarily change doctors just because you're going to change your health insurance. Like, I think that if you have a primary care provider or someone that you feel really like you have a really good bond with, or you get along really well with, and you want to stay with that person, I would just keep in mind that go home when you can to see that person. If it doesn't matter to you, like, I don't care what dermatologist I see. I just need a body scan to know that I don't have any like skin cancer or anything. So I go to any dermatologist, whatever city I'm in. But like for me personally, I have like endometriosis. So I'm religiously devoted to my GYN doctor. So like the other day, I, had an appointment and I went home to Philly just for that appointment because that's who I wanted to see. And it was still covered under my insurance and everything. But I wanted to make sure that I still went to my person who I felt most comfortable with. So don't think just because you're changing your insurance, you're going to have to change all of your doctors too. But also keep in mind the ones that you can be flexible with and the one that you can't.
Yeah, I agree. Like my PCP and my allergist, I will not leave. But like crap happens when you're on the road, like oral surgeon, I just had to get in with someone. So yeah, but I think it's a good rule for life to like keep your primary, like your gynecologist primary doctors, like they should know you. But stuff happens on the road. So have all your, and Britt included your immunizations. Have all that.
Transportation. This is a big one that I ran into when I started travel nursing. It's also honestly another big reason why I've stayed on the East Coast, because I know my car will work here. You have to think about how you're going to get to your next assignment. So if you are on the East Coast and you're taking an assignment on the West Coast and you start in a week, are you going to be able to drive all the way that you need to get there? Or are you going to fly? Or are you going to take the train? There's so many different options. And I think it's really important to think about that ahead of time. If you are going to fly to your next assignment, like I know people who've gone to islands like Alaska. Well, Alaska's not an island, but to drive through Canada to get to Alaska, it's a far, far drive, I promise you. And then to go to Hawaii or Guam, I know people who've taken assignments in Guam and the Virgin Islands. If you fly there, just keep in mind ahead of time, are you going to get a car when you get there? Or are you going to rent one? I know people who've bought just like, kind of used cars in the areas that they've gone to and then resold them after. I also know people who've just rented the entire time that they've been there. I think that there's also really good options if you're in a big metropolitan area to just take public transportation. If you want to ride a bike to work, you can always do that as well. But I think considering weather, terrain, the type of area you're going to be in, last winter, I wanted to go to Colorado so badly, but I knew personally, like I drive a little Hyundai, and if I was going to be driving to Colorado, I was going to need to get a new car. And that was just like not something that I was ready, because I didn't want to spend the money on getting a new car, but I don't have 4-wheel drive on my car currently. And I learned the hard way the first time I went to visit Colorado that you need to have 4-wheel drive, especially in the winter. Parking in cities, especially if you are in a big metropolitan area. I'm from Philadelphia. I know the parking nightmare that San Francisco can be. I'm sure that Tayler can speak to that. I had a friend who traveled in San Francisco, and she literally paid monthly to have parking in a spot in a garage. Like someone rented out their garage so she could just park there so she could have her car. And the troll tolls. So I live on the East Coast, and there's tons of tolls anywhere that you're going up and down the East Coast. So back in the beginning of COVID, there was like no one at the tolls, so you had to have Easy Pass. I did not have an Easy Pass at the time, so I was getting all of these toll bills sent to my house, but I wasn't living at my house. I was living in where I was doing my assignment at the time, and I racked up a couple $100 worth of tolls. So I think that that's also super important to take into consideration. Parking tickets too. It can be a nightmare getting parking tickets in different cities if you don't know how the parking in the areas work. Sometimes cities don't have free parking. If you can get free parking in the city or at your hospital, sometimes you have to pay for parking there too. If you can find like a nice community hospital where you don't have to pay for parking, that's great. I've worked mostly in major metropolitan areas, and all the hospitals that I've worked at, I've had to pay for parking or take public transportation, which is usually my route. I'd rather take public transportation than pay for parking always, because it is expensive. After, like, I've been in hospitals where you've had to pay $20 a day for parking, and it really does add up after a while. So yeah, those are my tips and tricks. I don't know if Tayler, you have anything about San Francisco, if there's anything that you can add with the West Coast. I know that there's not as many tolls on the West Coast, but
yeah, there's not as many, but I'm in San Francisco. I know the exact same thing happened to me, where I had just got out there, hadn't bought a pass, so I was going on the tolls every day. It was coming to my house in Tennessee, and I like didn't think about it. I racked up $200 worth of late fees on each time I went to the toll. So it was like $1,300. Thankfully, I called and literally pleaded with a woman, and I got it down to my like original, just the toll amount, which was like it literally went from $40 to $1,300. So do not let that crap slide. In terms of parking tickets, yeah, the situation in San Francisco and Oakland is a nightmare. I drove to my assignment in DC, and I ended up paying, the 3 months I was there, I paid over $1,000 between tolls, parking, and speeding ticket, which is my own fault. But my car got towed twice in one day in DC, and I, honest to God, wish, I remember thinking, like, I wish I didn't have my car, because the street sweeping had to move it. I wish I didn't have it here. So going to a city like that, like, it's probably best to not take it. There's a question about shipping your vehicle. I've never done it, but lots of travel nurses do. I would rather drive across the country than pay that. Yeah.
Just shipped from California to Hawaii, and I think they said it was like $1,000, which truthfully isn't bad, like, considering having your own car and not having to pay for a rental car for that area. I think it'd be worth it. I don't know from one side of the country to another. I do think it is a couple $1,000s.
Yeah,
it is. Also, just to let you guys know, look at the timing when you're shipping your car. I've shipped my car twice, and I've driven multiple times, as well as flown and all of that. So definitely check the time frames when you're shipping, because a lot of times if it's the slow season, like etc. currently now, they'll actually hike up the price. So one, shop around just like you would anything else, and make sure you're getting a good rate for your shipping. But I've shipped my car multiple times, and it's been fine. I shipped it from Baltimore to California, or Baltimore to Arizona, sorry. And it was like $800 to $1,000. And then I also shipped it from North Carolina, where I'm from, to Oakland, and it was around like less than 1,500. But as we said, like, timing, wanting to do all that kind of stuff, that it just depends on what you prefer in your time frame on stuff. But I have shipped my car.
I also think, like, if you're dead set on a place and you want to, like I could have easily gone to Colorado and rented a car out there if I didn't want to buy. It would have been cheaper than buying a new car, you know what I mean? But I also think that if you're going to be considering buying a new car, take that into consideration, because it's good to have for packing. It's good to have an SUV. When I was buying my car like years ago, I was like, I live in Philadelphia. Someone is guaranteed to hit my car at least 3 times in the next few months. And I am not going to get anything fancy or big, because I want to be able to parallel park it as much as I can. So I think that was my thought process. If I was doing it again, I think I would do it a little bit differently. I would want something with a little bit more space to pack, and I would want something if I wanted to tow stuff, or if I wanted to, kind of get a like 4-wheel drive. I also think that there are people who use RVs as their primary transportation. I just bought a van, so you could do that. You could live out of a van and have that be your primary way of getting around and living, if you're, feeling feisty. But I think that there are many options of what you could do for transportation. I also do want to encourage, like, you can use a bike. I know coworkers who use scooters to get to, and it's super easy to take with you. You can just kind of pop it in your car, and then, take it with you on your assignment, and use a scooter to get to work, wear a helmet. And just put it in your locker once you get to work. I have so many coworkers who do that right now.
And also, I just want to preface too, at some institutions, they also have trams. They also have buses that actually take you from certain parking lots to certain places as well. Certain states have like light rails, metros. I took the in New York. So there's a lot of options. Just look at where you're going and see, for example, UCLA has a metro. When I was, and then also I think Hopkins still might too. So just look in your area around like where you're going. And a lot of times they'll have like, is it walkable and things like that too. I just wanted to let you guys know.
I was going to say, that's a great point, Brittany, because actually where I'm at right now in Richmond, our bus, like the bus route that we're taking has, it's free for healthcare workers. So that's like throughout the entire, actually the bus, I'm pretty sure for everyone right now is free for like anyone who's taking public transportation, but like for healthcare workers, always the main bus line, like we can just show our badge and we can get on for free. So I don't have to pay anything like to get to work, which is super awesome. And it's like in certain areas like DC, I know the metro is really good. Someone said that. And like, New York, obviously you can take the subway just about anywhere. Philly has a bus system. It's not like, it's fine. You have to take a couple like hopovers to get to different things. And they also have a subway system, which you can take too. So just know, like sometimes what I'll do even is because my bus station is pretty far away from my apartment, like here in Richmond, sometimes I'll just drive to like the bus station because it only goes one way. And so I'll just take it straight down, but like to get to the station closer rather than like walking when it's dark in the morning, I'll just do that to make it easier for myself.
I just want to say like this surprised when I started travel nursing is most like major hospital systems or just big hospitals, like Seattle Children's does it, Stanford does it. Like the hospital literally has a transportation department where there's like people that you can just go to and like, I live here. What's the best way for me to get to work? And a lot of times, like they will hook you up with a pass or whatever, and they are logistics specialists, and they can literally tell you exactly do this and help you do that.
Sometimes security will like take you to your spot too. Like I know in Philly, when we would get out of work, like at random times, like if I worked overtime or if I worked a double and I was not getting out of work until like midnight, I could ask security and they would take me to the parking garage or like to my car. And Easy Pass, I've used my Easy Pass everywhere along the East Coast. I can't speak for the West Coast. What is yours called, Tayler, out there? Like the toll pass thing.
We don't have tolls in California.
I know, right? Like you guys are so lucky.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I went from San Francisco to SF to San Jose everywhere, and there's no tolls.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why we're doing so many tolls out here, but it's brutal. But I mean, they're not bad. Some of them are like 40 cents. But anyway, Easy Pass is good for the entire East Coast. I know that. Like you can drive from Maine to Florida and you can use your Easy Pass the whole way up and down.
I don't know what an Easy Pass is, and I've had to pay tolls, so that makes me think, no, I'm not. I wouldn't know what that is, and I've had to pay tolls at other places, so.
All right, home. I think people are answering enough in the questions. Thank you guys for answering. Easy Passes on the East Coast, but not in all places. SoCal, you can get on the app. Yeah, it's very minimal tolls on the West Coast. All right, we'll get to these other questions at the end, but let's start back up on home.
All right. Home. I have a house that I'm renting out to family. That's like my home. So it works. Take care of storage. Stay on top of your mail. 10,000%. The biggest thing is, like I talked about the tolls, but also like random crap that you just would never even foresee. It comes, and if it gets ignored for 3 months, it can be really bad. So I personally have never like forwarded my mail on assignments because I am stressed out that things are going to get lost. But I have plenty of friends that do that, and every assignment they forward it to where they are, and they stay on top of picking it up. If you don't want to do that and you want to have it mailed to like your home, just make sure there's someone in your life that's home and designated can stay on top of your mail, mailing it to you at least like once a month. Minimize and organize, get rid of literally everything. Not everything, but it adds so much stress to your life. I promise you need a lot less crap than you do, especially take what you initially packed to take on the road and then divide it by half. And that's probably like what about you'll need, me at least. But before you hit the road, I spend like each time trying to organize all my crap and just stay on top of it, like keep things in the same place, keep things organized by what they are. And a lot of things, like I think people think our life is so glamorous and they don't think about the stress of having to pack up everything you own in entire life and move every 3 months. Like that can be really stressful. So I finally have gotten down to a system of like literally what I pack together, where I pack it, how it goes in my car, and I stay systematic about it. Like do the same thing every single time. Try to take the same things on the road, and if not, if you need to go home and swap things out. And I keep notes in my phone of like my snow gear is here, and like all of my like fancy dresses are here. I think there's probably a lot better ways to do that, and maybe there's apps. I don't know, but stay on top of that. Prioritize and plan. Holidays, I think, get kind of messy, but ask, at least if you're going to do an assignment, like ask ahead of time, like, will I be off for the holidays? Can I have, this stretch off? And scheduling. One thing that I found is I used to I'd be home for a week and a half and I would just tell all my friends and family, like, hey, I'm in town these days, like would love to see you. You either end up being overwhelmed because everyone's trying to see you at once, or you don't see anyone. So now I have zero flexibility with my social schedule when I'm home. I look at the dates, say, okay, I'm going to see this friend this day, lunch this day, and text everyone way ahead of time, because if not, then you're not going to see them. And that's the kind of stuff that if you let it fall through the cracks, then traveling really affects your life and you can become really lonely. So, I'll text my friends 2 months in advance. I was like, hey, this Tuesday, have lunch with me. I'll be home. And get in a rhythm of calling people that are important to you. Pretty much every day I'm driving home, I call my mom. If you don't have a system in place and stay on top of that, then it can fall through the cracks. And like I said, I don't know, it just sucks. And then that's how traveling, can get lonely and changes your life. So make sure you stay on top of calling people.
I think too, if you're traveling and you have a family at home, like you have kids or a significant other. I know a lot of my coworkers who travel and do that. They try and set one consistent day out of their week that they plan with their kids, that they know, okay, this is me and you day. I'm going to be home this day. We'll do this together. I think that from what I've been told has been really beneficial for my friends and their families, because they know it's family day and they can do things together and they have that planned out ahead of time. I also think if you have a partner or significant other at home too, you can FaceTime, you can do all kinds of date nights where you set things up and just have the same meal together, even if it's just getting takeout sushi and you sit together and you have that over. I do that with my friends sometimes too. My old roommate and I loved to watch Survivor. So we would if I was on assignment and she was home, we would watch Survivor together, via FaceTime, and then talk about it afterwards. And that kept us feeling like we were still kind of in that kind of world where we were still hanging out together, even though I was miles away and by myself in my apartment and having work the next day.
Just FaceTime friends or my mom and we're watching the same show, and the FaceTime 3 hours, but we don't talk the whole time. Just utilize FaceTime.
This portion of self-care, I think, is really important. I'm a huge advocate for keeping, tabs on how you're feeling. I think the thing that, Tayler had said before, travel nursing can seem really glamorous and super fun, and it really is, but all of these things can really take a toll on you. You're traveling every 3 months. You are kind of, making new friends and leaving people, and it's really hard, and you're not home with your loved ones nearly as often, I think, as you would like to be. And I think when you first move away, especially for someone like me, who I lived in Philly like my whole life until I started travel nursing, that was a really big thing for me. And you're in a job where you don't have your people, like you find people for sure. Like I have found in every assignment that I have worked, like on my first day of this current assignment that I'm on, like me and this girl that are there, we're such good friends now, but we were like, you're going to be my person. Like, and we work on the same unit. So we've been able to like stay in touch. But I think powering down your autopilot mode. So like when you're at work, especially as a traveler, I feel like there's a lot of expectations of who, like what you're going to be or who you're going to be. And so you're helping and you're, you know, bringing a lot of knowledge to the table. So I think sometimes like I've noticed that my current assignment, people really ask for help a lot, or like they just ask for your opinion. Like, have you seen this before? Have you done this? And, you know, that's like really great. And it's wonderful to do that, but it's important to go home and kind of decompress. And because you're on so much while you're at work. So I think it's really important to remember to maybe just take a break from social media or your phone, or just do something that kind of brings you a little bit of peace. Finding a community around you, like I said, is super important. I think when you're away from your people, whether that is other travelers, I think that's great. Like I feel like travelers just connect, like on all of the assignments that I've been on, whether it's your first travel assignment or not, like you have this special bond with other travel nurses and you just click with them. And you're able to find people that you're, you know, become friends with, and you can go out and grab a drink with, or you can go to a workout class with, or something like that. And then your whole self needs. So things like, you know, feeding yourself right, and going and doing like some outdoor activity that you wanted to do. Like I can't tell you how many times been to a city where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this while I'm here. And then I get so caught up in like work or doing things, and I never got to do that one thing that I wanted to do. So I think that while you're in a place, remember why you went to that city in the first place. Kind of think of the things that you wanted to do in that city, and make sure like when you have your day off, you go and do those things, even if you are doing it by yourself. But I think that there are different apps out there now. There's like Bumble BFF. You can do different like local Facebook groups. Like if you find a city that you like, you can usually like Google search, you know, whatever city you're in, and find that you can like find different people in that area. Sorry, this is my cat. Speaking of self-care, bring a pet. Like you can travel with pets. You can find ways to, you know, I think cats are really easy to travel with personally. So I think that that's an option. And if anyone has questions about that, I'm happy to answer questions. I think exercising is super important. During the pandemic, that became like my go-to way of getting like my stress out. I downloaded the Peloton app, which personally I love because I can take it with me anywhere. I don't have a Peloton bike, but you can get like a freestanding bike, or you can take a bike ride or something. If you're taking a bike with you already, there's ways that you can prop up your bike in your apartment and you can just kind of use it as like a bike ride. But they also have meditation apps. Trusted has a ton of resources for health or mental health care. And I really recommend using some of the online virtual counseling if you feel like you need it. Right now with the pandemic, everything is super overwhelming. And I think that we need to really just remind ourselves that we are not robots, we are humans, and we have to take care of ourselves first. So remembering non-work things is super important, whether that is like if you like to volunteer and that's something that's really important to you, you can find volunteer.org is a really great option. You can find local organizations or animal shelters or things that you need that you are near you that you can volunteer with. And that's also a great way to find people as well. Or if that's just reading a book or joining a book club, those are so many options. You can do those virtually too, and do everything through Zoom now, and kind of feel like you have some resources and things around you.
I just want to add for exercise, I personally use Planet Fitness, which like probably isn't the greatest gym. I don't know, it's not super fancy, but I pay for the like black or whatever, and it's literally $20. You can go to any gym in the country. So I think that's great just for that reason alone. And I just want to add to nourish your body of think about it with housing, because I used to kind of like not super care about like the kitchen situation, and then I worked an assignment where I just had a mini fridge and a microwave, and like you end up eating crap all the time. I did, or
Take
yeah.
out.
Oh
like,
yeah,
at
or
work.
you pay like $18 a meal for
Yeah.
DoorDash, which I am like so bad about. So now like my hard stop is like, no, like I have to have an oven and a full size fridge so that I can like cook and food prep.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to take a cheaper housing if you don't have a kitchen, but like invest in yourself, love yourself. Like
Also,
you need an oven.
I mean, well, you don't necessarily need an oven. I'm just going to
Yeah.
sit here and say an air fryer is like a great alternative because it's
And an Instant Pot.
Yeah, and it can plug in, and like you can take it with you everywhere. Like I literally have a tiny. Well, I left it with my last roommate because they like fell in love with my air fryer. But I got an air fryer, and I was bringing it with me on like all my travel assignments, and it's so quick and easy. I literally will pop frozen stuff in the air fryer, cook it up, bring it to work. It made it really nice to have like just real actual meals because takeout's great, but it gets old after a while. The other thing I will say on that like aspect, two things. So you can always do like a meal prep type thing. Like there are different local companies that you can find. Facebook's like always has like different options, or Instagram, you can find local meal preps. But you can also I did Hungry Root. And I really liked that for a while because especially during the pandemic, like when we weren't out shopping or anything, they would just deliver it right to my door. And it had a bunch of different ingredients. So it had like a protein and some veggies and things like that. And like you could just mix and match. And I loved that because whatever I was in the mood for, I had. And then if I wasn't in the mood for something, I just saved it for another meal. And then from the Planet Fitness aspect, there's tons of gyms like that, but there's also ClassPass. And ClassPass is a great option because you can just buy a bunch of classes and use them anywhere. You can also use it for like massages or facials. Like I think it is, yes. Have you not heard of ClassPass? It is amazing. Yeah. So it's my favorite gift to give people too, is like, I love to give people a ClassPass gift card because it's just one of those self-care things that like you don't feel guilty using it because you can go to like any classes anywhere and you don't have to have a membership. Or if like your favorite fitness studio is like not in one city, but it is in another, and you're going to be able to go back to it later, instead of getting a membership to that studio, you can just get ClassPass and use it there. And like massages are my go-to like feel better thing too.
All right. Oh, that was so good. I hope you guys are just excited to start all this stuff because it was so much information. All right. So we're going to get into the questions. I do remember one above was asking about the Roth IRA. It is never too late to start a Roth IRA. I know that most financial companies have them. I know that mine was through Fidelity. Do you guys have any recommendations or where you guys were from?
I do my stuff through Northwestern. So my financial advisor, she's wonderful and she does a lot of stuff through Northwestern. If anyone needs a financial advisor, I'm sure Tayler can recommend someone. I'd be happy to send my person's information. She also connected me with people who were able to help me refinance my student loans, which is really kind of difficult as a traveler because of like not having like a steady income. But they were able to work with me, and they work with a lot of healthcare providers, luckily. So I really like those ones that I work through, but there's tons of different ones.
Yeah, I don't know enough about companies to know if I like recommendations. I use American Funds. I think it's great. It makes me money. I don't know anything else beyond that, but I use American Funds.
I also think there's some apps too. Like my bank is Aspiration, and like through Aspiration, I can actually just invest in different companies. So I think that I really enjoy using that one because it's like on the app, and I can just say like, okay, here's a chunk of money towards there, and do it that way. I also saw someone mention taxes. Travel tax, personally, I think is a great resource. Trusted has a ton of information about taxes. If you go on the website, there's blogs, and we've spoken with different people about getting ready for your taxes. I think the earlier the better. I learned the hard way last year. It was like my first year as a travel nurse that I was doing my taxes, and I went to get through with someone at Travel Tax, and like unfortunately they were booked by the time, but they were really wonderful and like responsive, and made sure I had like resources and stuff. And I was able to use some of Trusted's resources as well to find a local CPA. But I would say that there are plenty of tax resources available.
I'll link them in the email, the resources that we have for you, okay? Someone asked about traveling with pets, Nikki. Any advice?
I can speak from a cat standpoint. I brought my cats down to Richmond, obviously. I think the one thing I will say with pets, like at least for me, is just being prepared, like of having kind of a routine set for them. So my cats, I know they're getting fed before I go to work and they're getting fed when I come home. It's a little bit different with a dog. I have so many coworkers though who have dogs. They either have like connected with other travelers who are off on certain days, and if you trust that person enough, they'll go walk their dog. Or Rover is a great app. I've used Rover for cats and dogs to have someone come in and check on their pet and take them for a walk. I used to work night shift a lot, and so when I had my dog, I would have Rover come and walk my dog at 10 p.m. and then I would work night shift, and I would go right when I got home and take him on another walk as soon as I got home before I went to bed, because if I even got close to being comfy, there was no way I was walking my dog after that. But I will say that with cats, I have two and I travel with both of them. The one thing I had to learn the hard way is like it does take them a little time to get reaccustomed to things afterwards. And so I got this like pheromone diffuser. Sorry, I'm gonna bring her in the frame because she's trying to be the star anyway. So a pheromone diffuser, and it actually is supposed to like give off the scent of kittens, and it's supposed to help calm them and get them used to new environments really quickly. So I used that. I would recommend that. And I also bring their favorite like toys, and they have like a scratching post that they love. So I brought that for finding housing. Furnish Finders, which is what I've used since I started traveling, has resources of like pets are accepted, pets are not accepted. When I was living in Philly, they stayed with my roommate. So I was only living in places that didn't accept pets. But then when I came down to Richmond, I just used Furnish Finders. I found an apartment that would accept pets. I didn't think it was particularly difficult. I also have friends who use Furbos as well to like keep an eye on their dog. I'm even thinking about getting one for like the cats, just like throwing them treats in the middle of the day.
So good. Airbnb also sometimes has the same as well for housing.
I have friends who've done Stage too, where you can like rent an apartment and they'll like I think that's what it's called. I'm pretty sure it's called Stage, and you get a membership, and what they do is they rent an apartment for you and furnish it for you, and then as long as you let them know within a month that you're leaving, they'll like and get another apartment through them, they'll take care of everything that's in the apartment as well. And I never heard of it until my friend on this assignment did it, but they were able to do it with their animals, and that's why they chose to do that one. And if you reach out to me, I can find out the information for sure and let you know, but I'm almost positive it's called Stage.
Next question, how percentage of times do they ask you to work overtime on your assignments? Is it required, or you have an option to choose if you'd like?
I'll just say there's definitely a lot with COVID now. It's becoming more and more the norm to have like 48-hour assignments. That used to not be normal. I've never worked a contract where OT was required. So sometimes it is, and as it is, it just depends on the contract. I personally don't work overtime on a travel assignment because most of the time we have a lower hourly wage. So I don't think it's worth working overtime. But like I said, COVID has changed everything. And now sometimes the overtime rate is like well over $100 an hour. So it just depends on the unit needs. And some units won't let you work any overtime. They won't let travelers work overtime. But I mean, most units in the country right now are desperate for people, and they'll let you work whatever you want. So I don't think it's not any different than a staff job, I would say.
Yeah, every place I've been, no one's required overtime. Like you can sign a 48-hour contract. I did do that once, and it is a lot. I only did it for 4 weeks, and it was night shift. So I would just I was like a zombie. I did my shifts and I kind of lived my life when I could, but I work overtime, I would say probably twice a month right now. just because my health system needs help, like they need staff. And so they'll come to me and they'll say like, hey, could you work this day? And if I feel up to it, like I will. I also have been fortunate enough, since I've been mostly working in COVID ICUs, to also pick up in my home unit, which not my home unit, like, you know, but a CT SICU. So I feel comfortable there. So like if they have needs, like I will just reach out to the manager actually on that floor and I'll say, hey, this is my background, this is my resume. If you guys have needs, like I'll pick up, and they'll just send me all the needs that they have and I'll pick up over time. So I get to like have a little break of what I'm doing. The one thing I do know that from a cardiac standpoint, if you work cath lab, they usually do have you take on call. I know that that's normal for like a staff job too, but I'm pretty sure you do have to work on call for most cath labs. I don't know how the OR works, but I know that a lot of my friends who work in the OR do on call as well.
Yeah, it'll all be in your contract as well. So don't sign anything. If you're not willing to work overtime or you don't want to, then don't sign the contract. But I have worked overtime at all of my assignments. Some were in my contract and some weren't. But it just depends on your unit, just like Tayler and Nikki said, what the needs are and things like that. And segueing into this as well, holidays. That's also unit-based and unit need-based. You are required usually to work at least 2, depending on what time frame you're working in. You will, like, for example, the holidays now, you would have to work, like, depending on what their holidays are, like a Thanksgiving one and a Christmas one, but then you may have New Year's off, or the opposite where you have to work, you know, X amount and X amount, and then you have to work another one. So yeah, that's kind of the gist on the holidays. It really honestly depends on your unit. And what I always ask people or caution people to do is just talk to your manager. Whenever you get your interview, just discuss that with them. You know what I mean? If you really need to go home on the holidays, but you were willing to work the other ones, that's something that you can discuss with them. But that's always going to be unit and manager specific. So yeah, for that part of the question.
Sorry, but you can also schedule around them. So like I extended my contract this time to mid-December. So I agreed that I would work Thanksgiving. But then I'm giving myself off. Like I'm not picking up a contract for Christmas or New Year's just because I've never had a Christmas off in like 10 years. So I was like, you know what, this is the year, like I'm just going to give myself that time off. So I always worked Christmas because my colleagues like had kids. So I was like, well, I went off New Year's. So I was always willing to work Christmas. But this will be the first year where I'm like, whoa, I get to have off Christmas and New Year's. And I worked a per diem job like the first year that I started traveling. So last year I worked Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And so this year I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm just gonna have off.
The other question is, do you guys feel that you're given the hardest patients, or that the schedules you're given is the worst compared to regular staff?
I think it's incredibly unit-based and manager-based. Scheduling, yeah. I mean, but you have to go in mindset, you are there to fill a need. So, and I mean, like every unit is usually based on seniority, which if you come in, you have basically no seniority. So I've been used kind of just to fill holes scheduling wise, but that's part of it. Acuity wise and assignment wise, that's never happened to me. I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen. If anything, I've experienced which I do pediatrics, so we're all kind of protective. Like I'm coming in, they don't know me, so I usually don't get the sickest kids because like they don't, they don't know me and they don't know if they trust me yet. And I know my friends in the ICU say the same thing a lot. Like they don't get the super sick kids because they don't know you. So it's never happened to me, but.
Yeah, I think from a scheduling standpoint, I've had like both scenarios happen. Like my first assignment, since they had assigned weekends, they actually didn't need me on weekends. So I barely worked weekends on my first assignment. Like, I don't know if I just lucked out in that sense or like it was just the place where I was working, but I was off so many weekends. But then like this current assignment, they just had more needs on weekends. So when I extended, because I extended my contract in Richmond twice, when I extended the first time, I just put that I was only going to work every other weekend. Because personally, I like knowing that I'm going to like be able to have off certain weekends. So I was willing to do that and they were willing to work with me. So I said like, I'm happy to work like every other Friday or every other Saturday, Sunday. So that I think is a good thing to take into consideration. If you know you want weekends or you know that you have things that you're doing on certain weekends or days or things, like talk to the manager beforehand. Sometimes they're really flexible. I know some will do block scheduling, some won't. I don't care about block scheduling personally. I work all days now. I used to be a permanent night shifter when I was staff, but now that I am a traveler, I work mostly day shift. So I don't really care about having block scheduling. The other thing I will say about assignments, like I think it's very unit specific. It's very hospital specific. I think like I've only had one hospital that has given me a 3-patient ICU assignment. And even then, like I was not the only person who had that assignment. Other staff nurses had that assignment too. So like it was the hospital that clearly had staff issues. But my assignment now, like I love where I'm working now, and I actually get to precept because I've extended a couple times. Like they let me precept other travelers. I've precepted some staff. I have a history of precepting. Like it was something that I did a lot of, and education is big in my background. So they were comfortable with that. But I don't think just because like I did feel like when I left, I was like, oh, I'm never going to get a sick patient ever again. But that's not true. Like, especially if you extend places, I take CRRT where I'm at now. When I've been like to the other cardiac units, because they know me and they know my background, they've let me take devices there. So I can't imagine I would get ECMO, like because I'm trained in ECMO, but like if I went to another cardiac surgery ICU, like I wouldn't probably get ECMO there unless I extended multiple times. But I've worked in other cardiac surgery ICUs where I've gotten lumbar drains and fresh hearts and like things like that. So I think it's very unit specific.
I think just the biggest thing with it's like overtime scheduling, acuity is like talk about it in the interview. Talk about it in the interview, set firms. Don't be that person that shows up like, well, I'm not working Christmas or I'm not doing that. Just everything, talk about it in the interview with the manager.
Yep.
Show interest too, like they will be happy to like introduce you to those things. So I know people who on my current assignment had never taken CRRT, and they sent them to the class because they were interested in it and they had the need. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and that's very system dependent and unit dependent. And if you've never taken CRRT before and you don't feel comfortable with it, you can always say like, hey, this isn't my wheelhouse. I'm not comfortable. I don't want to take a patient like this. So I think that's important to remember too.
So we have a lot of insurance questions. We have a lot of tax questions. I will link the resources. We are not tax professionals and we are not insurance professionals. So none of us are going to answer any of these specific questions. Sorry. But I will make sure that you guys get the resources that you need. Okay. And I'll also link some housing resources as well, because I know that for first-time travelers, that's a huge thing. As we referred to, Furnish Finders, Airbnb, VRBO, there's a ton of things, but I will also list those links. We actually did a housing event as well. We did a taxing event, and we did a health insurance event, and I'll link all of those because we are running out of time. So I just want to make sure I get to the ones that I can't provide with the resources. I do apologize. But because you guys are having so many questions and you guys are eager for this information, what I'll try to do is actually plan another event for the new year, okay? Okay, sorry. I'm just going to answer like a couple more questions. Yes, you can work with multiple agencies. Of course, we're going to tout Trusted and we're going to say that you should work with us. But yes, you can work with multiple agencies. If anyone ever tells you not to, that's a red flag. Because in the travel nursing game, different pay, different benefits and things like that. So yes, it's just of your best interest to make sure, just like with insurance plans, just like with a car, you know all of your options. But of course, we're going to say, please work with Trusted. We think we're the best, and we think that we will handle all your needs effectively and appropriately and help you through this process.
I will say I have done all of my assignments except for one with Trusted. And the one that I didn't do with Trusted, I literally texted my nurse advocate. I texted Ashley the next day, and I was like, girl, wait until I can come back. I was like, please, like, it's just, I think that there are plenty of agencies out there, but I really do think that Trusted has the most resources. And I'm very happy. That's why I'm still here.
The other question about the housing, I'll just answer it really quickly. Yes, the most cost effective is to get your own, just because I'll kind of explain it quickly. If you get a $3,000, say like housing stipend, and the company, and you go through the company will take all of that money. But say you get $3,000 and you find a $1,500 apartment. You know what I mean? You'll get that $1,500. So, and that's like a quick and down and dirty example. For the two people that asked about, can you have other jobs and work, PRN or per diem or something like that somewhere? Yes, I know a lot of nurses do. I, for one, did as well. Tayler does, Nikki does. So we are all pros at that. I know people who flew back and forth. I was in LA and flew back to Packard. So yeah. So yeah. Also, if you ever want to work at Packard, it's amazing. So do so. But yeah, we definitely, we would recommend, if you want to or have the time and the availability, definitely do what makes your money work. The only one that I probably won't be able to answer in the resources is Tayler, how are you able to make it work owning a home and traveling?
Like we've said about everything else, I'm not an expert in this. I personally just own my house and I rent it to family. So it's my tax home because I do pay, like I still pay the mortgage and I just rent family. And then I just rent an apartment on the road. That's what I do.
I will, for the state licensure, we have a whole guide for that. I'll link that. Yes, your insurance does lapse after, is it 21 days, guys? Or
if you've signed a new contract within 30 days?
I think it's 30 days.
Yeah, I think it's 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
But so the 2 months would be too much, and you would have to get Cobra.
I
will link that event as well for you, because that is within the insurance one. It talks about Cobra and it talks about the allotted time and things like that, and how quickly you would need another contract, etc. But yes, after a certain amount of time, your insurance does lapse. You can go into Cobra, but you'll have to either start a new plan or whatnot if you take fun employment for 2 months or so.
And just super quick, I know a lot of people have asked like for recommendations on other healthcare agencies. I have never found one that was remotely affordable, and I've looked for a lot. So it's not the greatest option.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last question. Yes, we do not have recruiters. We have just a whole team of people that will help you. We have nurse advocates that will help you through the job process. And then we have a whole rest of your team that will also help you through onboarding, through getting your credentialing. Tayler and Nikki can both speak to this. Like, we have a team that's always surrounding you and helping you throughout the process. So you're never alone. But we don't have recruiters that are going to be calling you and, like begging you and telling you to do this and that and the third. It's all in your hands. So you guys can make the decision, and you can, take everything into your own hands when you want to travel and when you don't, where you want to go and when you want to go. Sorry, I'm looking at all these other questions. Do you guys have anything else?
So I guess, do we got our social media info if they want to like DM us questions there?
Yes. And I will send out the slides, and it'll also have your information as well. But if you guys want to type it in the chat for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
That might be easier.
I feel like we could never get to everything that people have questions about, but there's a whole community to help you out, and Trusted will, I think all of the things that people have asked, like your nurse advocate will know, or at least point you in the right direction and help you with.
If you're asking about when to start looking for assignments, I would start as soon as you know that you want to travel. There's ways that you can actually toggle to show what dates you're looking to travel, and it'll only show you assignments that are available. For example, now we're starting to see winter needs. So if you're looking for winter timeframe, I would definitely start looking, especially because as Tayler said earlier, the higher rates go quicker. So if you're looking for a higher pay or a great assignment somewhere that you really, really want, definitely cast a wide net. Make sure you apply to all and everyone that you want. And the sooner the better. And for the person that asked where all the resources will be, so after this runs, the recording will be sent via the same email that you RSVP'd with, and it'll show a link to the video as well as the slides. And then within the email that has the wrap up, I'll also link all the resources. So it'll all be in one place, and it'll be emailed right directly to you guys. I do apologize. We are running out of time. We ran over already, but I appreciate all your questions. And I will make sure that I try to link all the resources that I can for everything for you guys. I'm just trying to see if there's any last minute ones that I won't be able to ask. I think we answered most of them. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming. We are just so happy that you chose us to, spend some time with tonight. We appreciate everything you guys are doing. As I said, at Bedside, we know how it is. We've been there, we are there, and we're here with you. If you have any other questions or you need anything else, please, like we said, reach out to Nikki, reach out to Tayler, reach out to myself. My Instagram is CatchBrit if you can. I know I'm not going to write it, but you guys have my email and I'll be the one emailing you guys. So you guys can just email me right back. So no worries. Thank you so much to Tayler and Nikki. Oh my goodness. This was probably way more than anybody expected. It was so great to have you ladies and we appreciate you guys.
This was so fun. Thanks so much, Britt and Tayler.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Everyone stay safe out there.
All right. Bye guys. Have a good night.